Well, welcome in, guys. I still have some people rolling in. We'll just start chatting a bit. My name is Sammy Anderson. I'm our marketing coordinator here at Softcrylic. I'm joined by our subject matter experts in regards of Azure Synapse and Power BI. This is our second event at Ask Softcrylic Anything. Thank you all for joining. The whole point behind these events has been we've had a lot of really great questions and participation in our Microsoft events, the dashboard in a day and analytics in a day. So we thought we'd open up the playing field for you guys to ask questions to our subject matter experts, whatever you're curious about, things that didn't make sense in the sessions or other things that you've come across since your time with us in those sessions. So that's kind of the whole goal today. We have a set of questions that were submitted to us, but throughout the presentation, if you think of something or you want an elaboration, please put it in the chat or the Q&A and we'll make sure that we address it. If something is not getting addressed in the video, we'll for sure address it in a blog following up, but we should have time today to go through any questions that come up, any follow-ups. Just make sure that you're putting them in. There'll be a poll that's launched, so make sure you check that out. And if you're not following us on LinkedIn, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn so you can keep up with our events and projects, as well as products and insights that we are releasing throughout the year. And with that being said, if you guys, I don't know, Nats, you want to start us off with a little intro for who you are with Softcrylic?
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Nats Sivaramakrishnan, and I lead the data engineering and application engineering practice within Softcrylic. I've been with Softcrylic for about 10 plus years, and I have a total experience of about 20 plus years, focusing on application development, including both web and desktop, and predominantly focusing on data, building data solutions for companies. Thank you. Corey, do you want to take over?
Oh, sure. Hey, Nats, thanks for the intro. My name is Corey Turner. I lead the data visualization practice here at Softcrylic, which does mean all things Power BI related. I've worked here at Softcrylic for about 5 years. Had the pleasure of working with Nats on projects for customers across that entire time frame. So Nats and I go way back as far as I'm concerned anyway. And we've, again, had the pleasure of working together both with Nats's team on the engineering space and architectural space, and my team on the front end delivery. So look forward to talking with you today about Azure Synapse and Power BI and how they sort of intertwine and work together. Anxious to go over these questions today. Thank you very much. You're on mute now, Sammy.
Now I'm on mute. Sundar, you want to go ahead?
Hey, sure. Thank you. So sorry, I have problems with my videos. Hey, everyone. My name is Sundar Sridharan. I'm actually working in the data engineering practice, and my specific focus area is more about data quality and reliability. I focus on building data quality solutions, particularly using machine learning models and whatnot. And I'm also helping Softcrylic coordinate all the marketing efforts with respect to Azure Synapse Analytics and getting expertise in Azure Synapse Analytics as well. Thank you.
All right. So that's our panel today. So start thinking about how you want to challenge them with what questions come to your mind. We're going to start out with a question that was submitted by one of our viewers here. Curious about what will be more efficient, connecting Power BI to Azure Synapse as direct query mode, or developing a model on Azure Analysis Services and using that tabular model to connect Power BI also in direct query mode?
All right. So it basically depends on the use case, right? So we have extensive experience working with both, particularly in context of Power BI, right? So whenever we have predefined data sets that needs to meet a specific SLA for delivery, then in those instances, we would definitely recommend a direct import, because analysis services also provides compute capabilities which can aggregate the data and then quickly help the data analyst visualize the data in multiple different views, in various different dimensions. But in case where you have to do ad hoc requests to data where we really don't know what is it that we are trying to extract out of it. So in more of an exploration mode, then we definitely recommend direct query. So, and also if there are any ad hoc requests that's coming from the business that does not involve with data that's already available within the analysis services. So in those instances, you can certainly opt out to use a direct query and then bring the data. Now, it also depends on where you have the flexibility to scale your compute capacity on in your infrastructure setup. So let's say, for instance, you are using only provisioned instances within your analysis services, but your SQL Server instance, not the SQL Server, but your MPP platform is capable of scaling out and then processing large volumes of data to get the information out for your cubes, then in those instances, definitely we would recommend a direct query. So depending upon the use cases where it fits in well, we recommend that. But one thing that we have noticed of late as an industry trend, I'll also share a URL for an article that I really liked that talked about this, is that modern enterprise data platforms, particularly that focus on implementing cloud BI applications, people are moving more towards Power BI premium solutions because they provide two key benefits. One is like they are trying to incorporate all the capabilities that analysis services have, and on top of it, they also have all the visualization tools that you need to build a complete BI solution. And most importantly, this Power BI Premium is also powered by analysis services behind the scenes. So eventually you will be getting almost all the capabilities that you would you would get with analysis services. And Corey and I, we were working for one of our clients, a media agency, where we kind of used the data import approach to show the initial levels of aggregation for various different users. And then when a user tries to drill down on that data point, then just for those drill down capabilities, we would be able to use direct query, right? So we are able to implement sort of hybrid solutions with Power BI Premium, which also provides some of the capabilities that analysis services provides. So that is where the industry is going. So my gut feeling is that eventually we will analysis services will go away, and almost all new platforms will be using Power BI Premium to use all the capabilities that's available across both these areas. Over to you, Sami. And let me share this URL.
Hey, Sammy, just before we hand off there to the next question, just wanted to follow up on what Nats had to say. I like that Nats brought up, the hybrid model solutions. It's something that we talk a good bit about in analytics in a day. It's definitely the future as far as enterprise solutions, and building on premium capacity is definitely the way to go if your organization is a size that can support premium capacity. As far as analysis services go, Nat's also said that it depends completely on your use case, and I love that he was able to speak to that, because when this question was initially asked in one of our analytics in a day, at the end of the day, when I was focusing more on Power BI and I didn't have Nats in the call to speak to sort of the architectural concerns about the approach. So I hope that answers the question well for the person who asked it. And I think, Hernan, I see you're here in the call. I think that was your question. So if you've got a follow-up on that one, by all means, let us know, and we'll try to speak further to it. Thanks very much for that question, Hernan.
Awesome. I think before we dive deeper in anything, maybe let's just go over what, in your opinion, why should anybody use Azure Synapse?
I mean, The idea of using Synapse is to bring solutions together, right? I mean, in modern days, like people implement data platforms in two different ways. One is like they do implement data platforms just with data lakes, and they use the architectural pattern is called data lake analytics, right? Where you have bring in all your data, store it in a data lake, and then you use solutions like Athena or data lake analytics service that's available in Azure, which can directly query on files and then share the results to you directly. Or you can also implement data warehouses like your MPP data stores, such as Azure SQL Warehouse or Redshift, and then implement your data lakes, data solutions. Now, with Azure Synapse, you're able to do both, right? So it's a single platform. The idea behind that is like to provide a unified service, in one place, and then bring in data engineers, data analysts, and data scientists to work together from within the same environment, right? So now with Synapse, you can, ingest data, then you can do data transformation. You can either use code-free data orchestration using Microsoft Flow, or you can use Apache Spark or SQL engines, which are particularly focused for advanced developers. And then you can also do data storage with data lake or within the MPP database, which also allows you to do data exploration from both these locations using your SQL engine. And then finally, we deliver reporting with tight integration with Power BI. Now with Synapse, people can come in and then have access to their data lakes or the MPP database, and they can write SQL statements, which can bring data from the data lake, then merge it with the data that's available in the MPP data store, and then get a single result set out and also view that instantaneously there. And so that is the benefit. So if there are data scientists who need to come in and then explore the data, run any of the data modeling, they are able to do that from using the same interface. Or if you have data engineers who needs to process data and then curate the data and implement data pipelines, you have capabilities in there. Traditionally, we would use different cloud services for to perform various different activities. But Synapse provides this unified interface where people across all the business analytics area can come in and then use the single interface and work on all the areas. And so that is the huge benefit that you get with Synapse compared to other resources that are available online or in the cloud space.
Awesome. Sundar, Corey, anything to add to that answer?
Not really. I mean, I think Nat's kind of nailed it there. As far as the Power BI integration piece, there certainly is the ability to get to Power BI in Synapse right now. It's the exact same experience as you would have in the Power BI web service. So it's not a full featured authoring environment quite yet. There's still not a one-to-one parity between the desktop authoring environment and the cloud version. That's on the roadmap. It's coming. So at some point in the near future, when that does become available, then pretty much you'll have all the capability of the tool, inside the Synapse single pane of glass. So there's really no reason to need to go anywhere else. We don't have that quite yet. The integration with Power BI is facilitated by the fact that Synapse can generate a connection file that you can download to your desktop and open and have complete connectivity in the authoring environment back to the resources that you've provisioned in Synapse. As the products both continue to develop and converge, I think Synapse will be a one-stop place where you can do you can handle data at every point in its life cycle, all the way from the very beginning all the way to delivery to your report consumers.
Yeah. The idea is to go to a single place where you can explore data, you can investigate data, then build data pipelines, build enterprise data models, organize your data, and also eventually start visualizing the data directly, as opposed to using multiple different tools. This just makes it easy to both use the platform and also manage the platform.
And is that one of the bigger differences between like Synapse and then Redshift or BigQuery?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to answer, partly answer the next question as well here because you brought that up. With BigQuery, you cannot, work on BigQuery using a provisioned model, right? So you'll be charged based on the amount of data that you query. And so one of the problems that we ran into with our client implementations is that they had already set up a BigQuery environment, and then terabytes worth of data was flowing into that environment on a daily basis. Now, initially it was good, but then from a processing perspective, yes, it was doing absolutely a good job. But over a period of time, as and when they incurred more and more volume of data, that environment was used to democratize the data, right? Meaning access was provided to users across multiple different departments. Now, not all those users were SQL savvy, so they were writing their own query or inefficient queries, I must say, which kind of you know execute or sorry use a lot of compute capacity in Google BigQuery, and they ran the query over and over again, and that kind of like they started incurring a lot of cost because it's a platform that lets you query, and you got to pay like about um, $5 per terabyte worth of data scanned for each query. And so the more data the query scans, then the more that you'll have to pay. It's the same principle like how AWS Athena works, but more in a stored contained environment. And but with Microsoft Synapse, you have both these options, right? You can work on a provisioned model, and when in cases where you have to explore your data, or you need to do one-off ad hoc query, execute one-off ad hoc queries, then you can execute a SQL on-demand version. So you can switch between both these areas. On top of that, it also has capabilities to manage workloads even within your provisioned environment. So you have multiple different teams who are trying to access the same data set, then we can manage the workloads, saying like the sales team should get like 60% worth of the compute capacity, and then the downstream delivery automated programs can have 20% of the compute capacity, and another team another 20%, right? So this way, the use of the provisioned environment does not impact the other person in terms of availability. And if it goes beyond that, if there's data science team that would like to explore this data or run one-off queries based on the business request that's coming in, then they can certainly go use the on-demand space and then execute it. So we can efficiently manage the cost between these two options that's available. So it's not one or the other. Both are available with Synapse, and we can use whatever that best fits in for our needs.
Yeah, that's convenient. More convenient, I guess.
Yes.
With Synapse, are there out-of-the-box machine learning capabilities as well with the tool?
Yes, I mean, there are two ways in which you can implement machine learning solutions within Synapse, right? So one is that you can write your own Spark jobs, and within Spark jobs, you can use your machine learning libraries, which can process the data and run the data through your machine learning algorithms and modeling, and get the required output. One thing interesting that Synapse is trying to do is like kind of try and integrate simple ML models within their SQL engine. So you would get like a predict method within the SQL engine, and you can define your model in Azure, and then you can specify the model through which your data needs to be processed with. And as part of your regular SQL syntax, you can basically execute it, and you will be able to run your machine learning models and then get their desired output. Now, obviously, that kind of capability is still in beta, but then the goal is to bring in um, solutions as such so that it's easy to run ML models anywhere easily without having to have dedicated specialization in that space. So the data scientists can simply build the models and then let us know the algorithms. And once that's imported in, then it can either be integrated within your SQL language and executed, or you can also run it through your Spark. And the one thing that we need to understand is that with Synapse, though we can run these models and then execute the data, it doesn't provide capabilities to basically develop these models. And that will have to be done outside of Synapse and then brought inside to do the actual execution of these models with the data. So there's quite a bit of work that need to do when it comes to the actual modeling of the ML solutions.
Oh yeah. What languages would you guys say that Synapse supports?
Synapse primarily has two different engines that they support. One is their T-SQL engine, and then the other one is their Spark engine. Now, the Spark engine, you can write code using Python, Scala, or Spark SQL, and you can use .NET. And obviously, T-SQL supports just the SQL engine. Now, I was talking about both provisioned and on-demand capabilities of scaling within Synapse. So this on-demand scaling is available only through T-SQL engine and not for the Spark. All Spark execution will have to be done only through provisioned infrastructure within Synapse.
Awesome.
Yep.
So within Synapse, how do you guys manage workloads and resource utilization?
Yeah, so I think this was also one of the slides in the presentation that probably Sundar would have taken. So yes, they have this concept called like workload isolation. So what we can do is we can create various different groups within Synapse. Syntax is like create workload group, then you define your group name, and then you can allocate your maximum and minimum resources. And you can also define your concurrency as part of that group that you're defining. So what this means is that the minimum amount of compute capacity that can be allocated to that group, and also the number of concurrent requests that the group can execute. So both of these will manage and restrict the workload by teams so that it doesn't impact another team who's trying to access the same database and deliver their or meet their data requirements. So that's how you manage your workloads within Synapse. It's pretty straightforward. It's not complex at all. And the one other thing that you can also do is like define clusters, and you can define these clusters, and you can dedicate these clusters to specific groups again after you create the group. So this way, if you have like two node cluster, then you can define capacity based on the nodes that are part of these clusters, and that's another way that you can manage the workloads within Synapse.
Awesome. So how is running Spark in Synapse different than running it with Databricks?
All right, that's a tricky question. So there's not a lot of difference. They use the same Spark engine behind the scenes. At least based on my experience, I have not seen a lot of difference. You have the same concept of provisioning the resources or the engines, the Spark engines, using which the code will execute. But the one stark difference that I would point out is the different types of languages that Synapse supports compared to the Spark engine that Databricks supports, right? So that is one main difference. But Databricks also, they have their own benefits, right? So you have your own. So in Databricks, they have something called as Delta Lakes, which lets you manage asset transaction properties for implementing Spark-based data lake analytics solutions. So it's pretty advanced and it has a lot of capabilities. So people who would really require asset transactional properties on their data lakes analytics solutions, they definitely need to use Databricks. But when it comes to Microsoft Synapse, it doesn't have that feature yet, but not to say that it will not have it in the future.
Right. That's pretty good for on your toes, Nats.
Yes.
I was going to say, I think you almost made Nats blush. I mean, that was interesting. So anyway.
Yeah. What are some of the best practices in your guys' opinions, probably more directed for you, Corey, when it comes to data modeling?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting sort of open-ended question. With regards to data modeling, we talk, and we've actually had a webinar in the past about, for best practices on the Power Platform, a star schema data model is definitely where you want to focus your attention. There's a number, this has both performance benefits as well as optimizing the amount of storage that your data will require. And the more that you can go ahead and break apart your sort of descriptive information from the actual performance information and keep that performance table where that's the one that's going to grow heavily over time, right? Keep that one as light as possible and as narrow as possible. You want to keep the number of columns in the performance fact down to a minimum, and keep all the descriptive information off in the dimension tables, where those tables are not going to grow as much over time. We talk about this a little bit in both Dashboard in a Day and Analytics in a Day, but it's definitely a deeper topic that's not like a 5-minute answer to anything. That webinar, is that what you just pinged? Is that the Visualize Your Supermodel webinar? We tried to have some fun with it. It might be a little bit silly, but we tried to sort of use some 80s movies as context for this discussion. I think it was fun. But if you guys have got more specific questions about how to accomplish that in your use case, always happy to talk shop with any of our attendees, whether it's the in a day programs or these Ask Softcrylic anything. If you've got a specific thing you'd like to talk about, we would love to talk about your use case. But just the benefits of proper data modeling are hard to overestimate. Let's put it that way. And one of the case studies that we talk about is some work that we did for a med tech provider. And I know there was another outstanding question about CDS and Power BI. So this is kind of a smooth segue there, Sammy. And we were helping a client who was trying to extract a bunch of data out of Microsoft Dynamics CDS tables and bring them directly into Power BI. And Dynamics is a wonderful, very powerful platform, and really effective in its wheelhouse. But bringing those tables directly into Power BI results in a suboptimal data model for reporting. And we had a customer who was having massive problems with their reporting as a result. And if we were able to take that data and refactor it and build it out into a proper, star schema for reporting via transformation, all done in the Power Query tool itself. And bring down report pages that were taking 5 minutes to initially open, down to where they were up and running within like 4.5 seconds. So, and that's all just based on remodeling the data. A little bit of DAX optimization as well, but really the bulk of the improvement is all in the model.
From that, do you conclude that CDS data and Power BI are a good fit working?
Well, I think CDS data is where, I mean, if you're using Dynamics, that's where your data lives, right? So you've got to use CDS data. I think the key to doing that well is to understand that while Dynamics structures data very well and CDS has a ton of information and it's well documented and it's a great data format to work with, you need to be able to refactor that to suit your reporting requirements in most cases, especially when you're dealing with, you know, enterprise scales of vast amounts of data that might be in your Dynamics instance. You're going to need to figure out how to aggregate it and how to roll it up into a star schema that that makes sense for your reporting requirements.
Totally, that makes sense.
Right.
Probably more directed at you, Nats, I suppose. Is Synapse available in on-prem mode? What would you say the best strategy is when you're running integrations into
Synapse at this point is not available in on-prem mode, at least based off of what I know. What we can certainly do, though, is we can create, there are two different options, right? So if you have a SQL Server environment on-prem, then we can basically set up like linked services and then bring the data from the on-prem servers and directly and use it within Synapse. And we can also set up express routes to make sure that the communication between these two environments are seamless. So that's one option. And the other option is to migrate all this data into the data lake that's being managed by Synapse. And so this way from Synapse, we'll be able to access that data and process them on the cloud side. So these are the two different options that we have.
Okay. And then did you say this or did I miss it? What is your best strategy for running integrations with Synapse?
Sorry, can you repeat that question? I lost you there.
What would you say the best strategy is to run integrations with Synapse?
Yeah, I mean, it depends upon the type of integration, right? So if everything is within the Azure ecosystem, then yes, you have connectors available and all the services to process data or access data from Azure. You can, get it directly through Azure APIs or through out-of-the-box services or plugins that they have with their ETL tools. If we need to integrate this data through to other third-party solutions or other cloud environments, yes, then there's this data exchange that needs to happen by pushing this data into a different cloud and then having data pipelines there to move it into the other solutions. Yes. But I think there are tools that can help you migrate all this data or move data from one cloud environment to another cloud environment easily. So we can employ those and then do those integrations. But I know that it's not a straightforward answer that I'm giving you guys in here. But as I said earlier, it totally depends upon the type of integration that we are trying to run with Synapse. But if it's just focused towards the on-prem integration, then yes, the two options that I discussed earlier, like setting up linked services and then accessing data from the on-prem solution directly, or pushing the data to the cloud. And I generally recommend pushing data to the cloud and then have this independent, discrete data buckets. This way, the jobs that we run to reprocess the data over and over again does not have the dependency on a different environment, which is basically, which has its own SLA and delivery that has to meet the delivery needs. So the best solution is to move the data to the Synapse data lake and then from there use it within Synapse.
Gotcha. All right. Let's see if we can catch you off guard again here. How efficient would it be running OLTP queries on Synapse?
OLTP solutions within Synapse. So OLTP, again, this is like I think Synapse is well suited for OLTP queries, right? Sorry, no, Synapse is not suited for OLTP queries. Sorry, I was trying to run through that in my mind between OLAP versus OLTP, right? And I was trying to define that inside myself and then answer the question. So yes, so Synapse is not suited for OLTP, right? So it's an MPP platform, and to that end, it fundamentally out of the box delivers like columnar storage schema. So if you need to do OLTP solutions, yet have some of the flexibility that Synapse offers, we need to use SQL Server hyperscale data service that's available in RDA solution that's offered by Azure. Their hyperscale provides capability to number one, separate the compute and the storage capabilities. So you can store up to 100 terabytes worth of data. And then you can also scale your compute capacity independent of the storage capacity. Right, unlike other pricing tiers. That's number one. Number two is that it supports both types of data processing mechanisms. You can implement a traditional RDBMS solution to support your OLTP transactions and manage that, or you can define columnar index stores and then set up tables that will be much more beneficial to implement your OLAP-based solutions. So if you need that kind of a flexibility, yes, you need to go use the hyperscale solution that's available in SQL Server database. But if we talk about Synapse, it's primarily focused on implementing OLAP solutions, and I wouldn't really recommend it for implementing OLTP solutions.
All right. Awesome. Let me see. I think that's all of our questions, unless you guys have anything for our panel before we start logging off here. I guess Sundar, Corey, Nats, is there anything that you want to touch on or elaborate on before we sign off?
I think this was a great pool of questions today with some, good breadth to it and some things out of left field that, almost got Nats back on his heels a little bit. So that was awesome.
I wasn't prepared. She caught me off guard.
It's hard to surprise
I
Nat.
was sending messages to everyone.
Really, completely prepared for everything, always, right? So that was awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks everyone who gave us questions. Thanks to everybody who's attended today. Really appreciate this, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time when we do this again.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Great job.
Thank you. Thanks, Sammy.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, all.